Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Spa-Francorchamps for the third and final race of the weekend for the Radical Challenge. And this is going to be the third 60-minute race around the 7-kilometre challenge of the Spa-Francorchamps circuit. Well, the weather at the moment is sunny and 24 degrees, but as Alex Mortimer sitting alongside myself, Ben Evans, can attest, it's been somewhat changeable over the last, well, even 15 minutes. We've just had a shower on the outlap as the car coming to the grid.
Yeah, it really is a mixed bag today. Standing down the pit lane only 15-20 minutes ago, Eau Rouge was bone dry, but looking at the times of the cars racing then, you could tell it was wet around the back. You know, I think it's a real mixed bag for these guys. They've got to decide, are they going to put the right tyres on for the start now, or what the track will be like in 30-40 minutes?
My guess is, having just watched the GT Open race that preceded this, is that to not go on wets is to wish a very hefty bonus on the spare parts department at Radical, because it is very, very slippery over in the far side of the circuit. Although Colin Noble, well, that's John Harrison, isn't it? Not Colin Noble, sitting there, not putting wets onto his car necessarily. But the team's all at work on the grid. Now, the challenge here, Alex, of course, is that when we go racing, they're only allowed 2 people to work on the car at a time. So we don't want to have one of those races where they're constantly flip-flopping with tyre changes.
Absolutely, yeah. We want the guys to hopefully to have a real fair fight at this. It spoils the race if we've got people in and out all the time for tyres. But it looks generally, as you say, that the slick tyres are on the tyre trolleys now, and there's wet tyres on the cars. So it's going to be interesting to see how this one develops.
So it looks like Konstantin Gurkayev starting in 5th. Oliver Barker in 6th, who drove brilliantly earlier on to finish 2nd overall, win the Supersport class of the race that was claimed by Colin Noble and John Harrison. Jack Lang, who starts in 7th, another driver who's had an excellent weekend, and Lang just sitting in the cockpit. When we do get going, it's going to be, not unsurprisingly, behind the safety car, but they can't get going until all the teams have completed the work on the cars and changed the tyres, which is why we might be looking at a momentary pause before we get underway. And yeah, no doubt for anybody that wet tyres are the way to go. Where this will start to get quite fun is if the track dries out more quickly than the time ticks down, and therefore they need to change off the wets before we hit the pit window. Absolutely.
These guys are going to have a difficult decision to make as the pit window opens. You know, ultimately, I think if there's a clear decision to go to slicks, they'll want to be in early in the window. If it looks like slicks are coming, but the track's not quite ready, they'll have to wait until later in the window. So some real input from the drivers here. They're going to need to speak to the teams on the radio, make sure they're prepped so that they're ready to do the tyre change if it's needed.
Mark Crader, 12th on the grid. He had some adventures earlier on, and rather him than me, going out with a clear visor actually for this one. And that's another tactic, that the sun is sort of low in the sky, there's water glinting off the track, picking the right visor, picking the right tyres, all a lot to do as the mechanics all getting to work on the grid. And the last couple of cars having the work done on them.
It does look like everyone, I think, on the whole is on a wet tyre. So it looks like we're going to start with a fairly equal fight. It doesn't look like there's any heroes just now who want to start on the slick. From what I can see, that's probably the right decision, looking at the second or the middle of the track.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily. I think the risk is that the damp sections of the circuit are so damp that it's not time you'd risk losing on slicks. It's more than that. As here is how they are. Then Ryan Booth in pole position. It's John Harrison who'll start alongside him. Then Andrew Ferguson and Jacques VR. Konstantin Gurkayev and Oliver Barker on row 3 from Jack Lang and Tom Harvey. Then Steve Burgess and Mark Richards. Dominic Jackson and Mark Crader on the 6th row. Then Aaron Bailey and Paul Allen from Shaheen Nuri and John McLeod. Elliot Goodman and Sean Byrne, Brian Caldwell and Spencer Bourne, Christian Jeffrey and Dominic Dieck, then John Caldwell and Adrian Watt as the grid keeps coming. Well, very quick drivers in those first 12 rows, and then it's Barry Liversidge and Gary Patterson from Rod Goodman and David Franklin, with James Robinson starting at the back of the field. So that's going to be a car that's going to be worth watching as it pushes its way through. The question we're then going to have first of all is how many laps they're going to do behind the safety car before we do get underway. It was 2 laps earlier on.
Hopefully just one now. Let's see what they decide as they go. And I think the thing to watch for on this first lap is going to be the fast-starting SR3s again, making up the third row. There'll be a safety car start, so they should start in a single file. But we'll have to see how the SR8s get on with the SR3s trying to make a move into La Source. Definitely, we know once they come out of there and have the run through Eau Rouge and down the Kemmel Straight, the SR8s will stretch their legs. But again, it's going to be an interesting dynamic at the start of this race, watching how the 3s and the 8s get on.
I think the other challenge is just going to be as well, getting the car working well enough to get the most out of the aerodynamic grip, and also then knowing when to rely on the mechanical grip too.
Absolutely, I think the guys will have thought they were going to a dry track. Stood down in the pit lane where the radicals were gathered. It was completely dry, so I think there'll be no compromised setups. I think everyone will be on a dry setup. Sorry, with wet tyres. So hopefully we should get a really fair fight here, and it's going to be really good to see how this unfolds.
It's hard to. It's almost impossible to see these people just enjoying a drink in the sunshine, because not half an hour ago we had the most tremendous rainstorm. As I think we've just got one more car having work done to it. I'm going to go with Gary Patterson there as the driver is potentially having his tyres changed.
Yeah, I haven't spotted any 1-minute boards or anything that will stop the guys changing the tyres. So we want to make sure no one gets any unnecessary penalties before the start of the race.
So we've got the grid beginning to be formed. The last car comes down off the air jacks, and therefore I think we should be moments away from getting going. There's John Cordwell, who is going to be starting outside the top 25, which is all that our timing screen gives us. There's the blue car of James Robinson, and that's one that I think we'll look to see pushing through the field later on.
Absolutely, I think with he and Jack Manchester, that should be a fast car. So be good to watch his progress through. James, the race winner yesterday, so we know he's got pace, he's got form around here. So and Matt and Jack, starting this morning, getting his first sighting laps of the track. I think speed got faster all throughout the run, and it'd be nice to see him and James get a result.
So we've got one car that's still having work done to it. Yet the signal is given to the drivers now, the 1-minute board. So that's the point everybody needs to get off the grid. And the engine started up, then the safety car will get underway, and then we will be going racing for the third and final time this weekend in the Radical Challenge. Lights flashing, safety car. We might have a problem here for John Harrison. He has still got somebody consulting him who possibly didn't hear the 1-minute siren and is being waved from the grid.
I think as long as the car's not in the air and no one's working on it, it should be fine. This is going to be a real test for the guys, though. Looking at the circuit here, because of the high ambient temperature, already starting to dry out. I can see wet parts, damp parts on the start-finish straight, and this could easily become a time management race for the first 25-30 minutes to the pit window. All depends on that middle section and how wet that is.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think that these first couple laps behind the safety car, they're just going to be seeing how quickly the track is drying out. Also, worth keeping an eye on what the weather forecast may or may not do, as the possibility, my infallible smartphone application tells me that we shouldn't have any rain for the next 60 minutes, but there is a chance almost into the final 5 minutes of the race. So a tyre change race this may well prove to be, as field waved on their way. The race clock starts to tick down, and already we had the shower at the source a few moments ago, and the track has pretty much dried itself out already. And I guess there might be a question as to whether or not anybody after this sighting lap actually comes in and makes the call for slicks. Be a bold move.
Not seeing a lot of the guys going for any tyre temperature. You don't generate much with a wet tyre anyway, but we'll see. They're all being very conservative at the moment, limited sort of weaving side to side, which says to me they don't want heat in the tyres.
Yeah, they will quite quickly, I'd imagine, get into exploring where the wet patches on the track are. But then you come out of Radio and this is where the spray starts to get kicked up.
Yeah, that's certainly, I'm going to say a track of two halves. That's going from bone dry to very wet very quickly. So, yeah, the guys will be relieved right now that they've got wet tyres on.
Yeah, and down the Kemmel Straight also so much spray being kicked up as well, which is going to be a little bit of a challenge for them, as Ryan Booth and John Harrison run in tandem, swinging into Lake Om. And again, yeah, you can see the sheen of the water just on the track.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, this just highlights that the wet tyre is the right choice. There's a lot of line water there. So this is going to be entertaining for the guys. It's a different situation, not a completely dry track. So it's going to be interesting to see how it unfolds, who can manage their tyres best, and who's confident to go from condition to condition.
Which is always the trick in these changeable weather races, and this is where experience starts to come to the fore a little bit. It's also where the pit stop strategy could start to play into things as tail of the field. That is Dominic Deerker. And then this is the Bruxelles hairpin area, which again is starting to dry out a little bit just because the water's able to flow down the road. But then towards Pouhon, still very, very damp indeed. And it's certainly going to be a few laps before a dry line. And what we should say is these cars do clear the water pretty quickly. We don't get any more rain.
Absolutely, absolutely. They do. They lift water because of the nature of the downforce and the ground effect they create. They do lift water from the surface, and that's what you see being thrown out behind in the rooster tail. And also it is 28 degrees here, so so I think the dry line will come quick. But you can see right now, if you were sat out there, wet tyre is definitely the tyre you would want underneath you.
Yeah, this is the way towards Fania, and yes, this would explain why it took them so long to get to the grid on the installation lap. I suspect we're going to have more than one lap here behind the safety car and towards Stavelot, and this is maybe where we'd expect to see things drying out a little bit more. While they've been on this first lap of the race, the sun has come out even more over the pit complex, and so the track is appreciably drier that we can see from the commentary box than it was when they set off 3.5 minutes ago.
Absolutely. It's just going to be interesting to see now where it actually starts to become dry. I mean, they're exiting Stavelot 2 now and it's still very much wet. So it's going to be, I don't know where it starts. Is it going to be dry at Blanchimont? Is it going to be dry at the bus stop?
Now, what's really fascinating, of course, is while we're behind the safety car, they're not going quickly, they're not particularly moving the water, but we get closer and closer to the pit window opening, which means there might be some who will want to gamble with slicks at the pit stop. There might be others who will try and nurse the car to the end on what will be very, very second-hand Dunlops by the closing stages.
Yeah, if nothing changes from this, I would suspect we will see people trying to put slicks on during the pit stop. So, but safety car lights still on, so it does look like we're going for one more under the safety car before this starts.
Yeah, we'll see what the word is. I guess the element that would have maybe caused a little bit of concern in race control is just the amount of spray being kicked up along the Kemmel Straight and through Pouhon, which really hampers visibility for those further down the field. So that would be maybe the worry. In terms of actual standing water, the track is looking pretty close to being raceable.
Absolutely. I mean, there's to me that didn't look like there was too much standing water. It's just a wet circuit. The guys have wet tyres on. You know, anyone who's elected to not put a wet tyre on could have popped into the pits there if they were uncomfortable. So I think they'll hopefully safety car lights off this lap, and fingers crossed we'll be going racing. Let's hope.
Yeah, I think anybody who didn't switch to slick tyres possibly after the installation lap would need their judgment called into question, possibly.
It would be a brave plan.
It would be a very, very bold one. And yes, exactly as you called it, Alex, the safety car is going to be in on this lap. So that said, that last lap behind the safety car was 4 minutes 41 seconds. So by the time we do go racing, we'll have had about 10 minutes of the race chipped away behind the safety car. And now there's you see Jack Lane just starting to explore where some of the grip might be.
Yeah, and that's good of him to do. It's a real thinking driver who's looking at that. You need to need to really think about your wet lines in these conditions. Ultimately, the rubbered line will not give the most traction when it's wet. So Jack, probably back to karting days there, I would expect will be thinking about wet lines. Where can I find the grip? And ultimately, even if you drive a bit more mileage, if you're off the racing line, there can be grip there. So we might see some pretty impressive moves in this race. This is one where experience does help.
It really does, and should explain the wet line. Sometimes when you go off the normal racing lines, where you've got all the grit, dirt, muck that's been thrown up through the weekend, and it just gives you a little bit more traction in wet weather. It can be really pronounced, where you suddenly see a car going right to the edge of the corner.
Absolutely, yeah. Again, if you have a rubbered surface and it's dry, a rubber tyre grips to it well, and if you put water on it, all of a sudden a rubber surface gets quite slippy. So the racing line, which is the only place you want to be in the dry, is often not the place to be in the wet. So you can see the guys there, a lot of them driving wide around the hairpin. That is because they will be feeling there's dramatically more traction there. But this will be completely exploratory for them, and using this time now, these 2 laps, just to find that grip is a good use of your time.
Yeah, they're learning their way as they begin to move towards Pouhon. And even spray a little bit less than it maybe was a lap ago, because the twin combination of the cars cooling the water and the high ambient air temperature hopefully doing the trick. This could be quite an entertaining start to the race, depending on who is feeling ambitious when they get going, and also what Ryan Booth wants to do in terms of backing the field up behind the safety car. If he's not found out already, he'll certainly learn momentarily when the lights go out in the safety car. It's coming in on this lap, and then it becomes his responsibility to pace the field.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Ryan's experience with this sort of thing, he should know exactly how to go through the safety car start. I think the challenge for these guys is going to be the first run through Eau Rouge. They're going to go into Eau Rouge with perfect visibility, and as they cross over the top, they're going to hit a wall of spray. So visibility, you can see just from that image there, you can't see that many cars back, and they're not at racing speed yet. So there's going to be a real wall of spray that some of these guys have to deal with, and it's going to be interesting to see how they deal with it.
Heading through the Stavelot section of the circuit, this is where they pick up the old Spa Grand Prix circuit, which you can still actually drive if you go a junction further forward, further down the motorway from the one to the main circuit entrance. You pick up the track just before the Master King, can follow it all the way around to the back gate of the track, and certainly puts a lot of perspective on what drivers in an era gone by would have gone through. Incredibly quick piece of road.
It is incredible. When you look at some of the old circuits, even Upton Park in England, you see photos of it, how it was 30, 40 years ago, and it's a different place. So no, lots of respect for that generation.
Okie dokie. So we're about to go racing for the third and final time this weekend in the Radical Challenge. The safety car has peeled off. We have had 9 minutes behind it, and now it's going to be Ryan Booth who will have to be very delicate with the throttle as he comes out of... almost loses it coming out of the bus stop chicane as we go green, and this is going to be a little bit of a lap of exploration for these drivers. La Source shouldn't present too many issues for Booth or Harrison. It's going to be as they head out of Radion and down the Camel Straight for the first time. Jack Lang, meanwhile, already up ahead of Oliver Barker. They've all demoted Konstantin Kutkayev. Tom Harvey also showing brightly, as is Steve Burgess, as the leaders arrive at Eau Rouge. First couple of cars through safely. It's then this big sort out amongst the SR3s. Again, Eau Rouge itself, shouldn't see too many of them being skittled off. It's more now as they come into this bank of spray, exactly as you called it, Alex, down the Kemmel Straight for the first time. And we can't see them.
Yeah, that gives a real insight as to what the guys will be seeing right now, which is just a cloud of spray. So hopefully there's no incident as they come out of them. And you can see Barker holding on to the place there with Jack Lang. It's very close, but they've now caught the SRA.
Oh, and
slight wheel-to-wheel contact between them.
Yeah, Jacques Viard, I think, getting a little bit caught out. The other driver who's going really well here is Tom Harvey in the red 64 car, who's relishing these tricky conditions. Steve Burgess moves past Viard. So, after a fashion, does Dominic Jackson. And certainly, we're not seeing any signals of yellow flags around the track amongst the front phase of the field as Harvey runs wide, coming downhill out of Bruxelles on towards Pouhon, which can catch out the unwary in the dry, let alone the wet.
Yeah, Burgess will be looking to get a run on Harvey now. will be interesting to see if yeah, he's up the inside of him. He's up the inside of him. So he'll want to be head down and chasing the next pack now.
Steve Burgess moves through, tries to streak away out of Puot. It's Ryan Booth who leads from John Harrison, then Andrew Ferguson. And we've got, I think, Oliver Barker from Jack Lang, Steve Burgess and Tom Harvey.
And the guys are now up behind Andrew Ferguson in the V8, so they're going to be looking to make a move here, but the V8 will show its speed down the next straight.
Yeah, although Barker, at the moment...
Unfortunately, I think the V8 will still have the run out of here, so once he gets his foot down, it's going to get tricky for the SR3s.
Yeah, quite what he wants to do through Blanchimont, however, is going to be far from easy to determine. Still a lot of spray being kicked up into the air as they swoop through the left hand at really difficult conditions, because the sun as well into the spray. It means the water's going to be reflecting in all directions, and in fact Jack Lang is in a position here of hassling Andrew Ferguson as they head towards the bus stop chicane.
Yeah, he's having to attack Ferguson, but also defend to Burgess. Burgess trying to get past Ferguson as well. Could be short-lived as they turn up the pit straight. See how the SR8 gets on.
Having to be so delicate with the throttle, Dominic Jackson also looking to ease his way past Andrew Ferguson. He manages to do so. There's now Steve Burgess trying to make the move on Jack Lang. This is the fight for second in the Supersport class. Jackson eases past Ferguson. Ferguson can now take it. Oh, and running wide was Jack Lang. I don't know if he must have kicked really sideways, is my guess, because he was going very slowly as they came out of La Source. And yes, now Ferguson past Jackson. He's going to get onto terms with, well, he backs right out of it into Eau Rouge, taking no chances. And it means Dominic Jackson draws alongside, goes past as they climb out of Radiot. And then Ferguson will pick up the throttle, one would imagine, down the Kemmel Straight. Yeah,
maximum commitment there from Jackson, really trying to push through and try and avoid losing any time with the V8. The V8 will come back by, but you'd have to say Jackson's going to find a way by for the rest of the lap. He's looking into Lecombe. Can he do it? Yeah, he's straight back past, so minimal time lost, so he'll be wanting to attack now in this middle sector and close back to the group in front.
Meanwhile, at the front of the field, Ryan Booth and Colin Note and John Harrison are well clear as a little bit of a spin, unfortunately, from Dominic Derkja. He should rejoin. Now, this is the fight between the leaders of the race.
Harrison and Booth really duking it out here. The two new SR8s on the grid look like they're having a race together. Really good race.
Oh, it's so treacherous through Pouon, isn't it? As Harrison went past Booth and then maybe thought better of it. Ryan Booth couldn't quite get past, mainly because Harrison was all arms and elbows in front of him as they arrive into Fania. And then we look further down the order into the SR3 scrap. It's headed by Oliver Barker from Steve Burgess, then Dominic Jackson, Tom Harvey and Jack Lang. The rest of this group all plunging downhill. Caught a glimpse there of the black car of Sean Byrne. As again through the spray towards Fania. Lang looks to the inside of Harvey. Can't quite pick his way past.
No, he's not quite got it there. The good news is that the car wasn't damaged with his scuffle at La Source on the last lap. So hopefully we're going to see him playing a big part in this race. Shaheen Nouri having a really good one behind them as well, tagging on the back. So Shaheen, lots of confidence. Looks like he's really getting into the circuit now. So let's see what he can do.
Yeah, Nouri taking a big bite of curb, in fact, going into Stavelot, which is optimistic, but it's not harmed his chances in any way, as we're coming towards the end of this second racing lap of the race, essentially. Fourth lap overall, different angles of attack into Blanchimont, possibly Lang just looking to the inside of Harvey to see some clear air, and Tom Harvey fully committed in this wet weather, really enjoying himself.
Yeah,
very assured.
Lots of confidence into Blanchimont there. Two wheels on the green, so that's a brave thing to do, but he's made it work. So he'll just be trying to plot his way past Ferguson. Ooh, unlucky for Nouri there.
Dominic Jackson's difficult weekend continues. He has got a drive-through penalty as work was going on in the car after the 1 minute board came out. So fortunate for Dominic, and he still is, but will be demoted, third in the Supersport class. As they head around La Source, down towards Eau Rouge. John Harrison and Ryan Booth lead by 13 seconds over the rest of the field. Seen masses of them. This is the fight for 7th and 8th in the race between Tom Harvey and Jack Lang. They've got Shaheen Nouri and Mark Richards not too far back. We've got a car that has gone off at La Source, because we've got waved yellow flags telling us that it's down the Kemmel Straight somewhere in the murk. there are racing cars. And Jack Lang, you can see he's moving offline wherever possible, as much as anything, I think possibly to see where he's going. As swings through Les Combes.
Interesting, it looks like Steve Burgess in fourth now, making some inroads into Barker. So 3/10 on the last lap. Looks like there's only 2.5 seconds between them.
And this would be the reason for the yellow flag. Spencer Bourne to the inside of Mark Crader. And it's Crader, unfortunately, he gets turned around.
Yeah, unfortunate there. Unfortunate for the guys.
So already Tom Harvey up in pursuit of Andrew Ferguson. As well, I don't think there's any question of changing to slicks in the pit stops, is there? Although we've got just shy of 20 minutes until the back end of the pit window, so some of those who might feel particularly emboldened may wait it out, but there's no dry line, for example, at all beginning to emerge through Pouhon. Head on towards Fagnes. And it's so difficult as well for the SR8 drivers because those cars have got so much power at their disposal, and then they get bullied through the corners like that by Tom Harvey, who swoops around the outside at Fagnes, sees some grip to the wet line. Jack Lang also looking to try and do the same thing, and he's Lang to the inside of Ferguson, and he should slip through. We'll see as the camera angle changes. Yes, there he goes, and through he's gone.
Yeah, they'll just want that magic couple of seconds to the V8 before they get to a straight, just so they can make a break. You can see Lang looking like he's got speed on his side, getting a really good run on Harvey there. So Harvey giving him space as well. So really, well, this is going to be brave into Blanchimont. Yes. They're going to go too wide.
Go on then, why not? It's only wet. And Jack Lang to the inside, Tom Harvey to the outside. They're still side by side as they head towards the bus stop chicane, and Jack Lang only now able to ease across, or is he? Because Harvey decides to fight it on the brakes. Looks to the inside of Jack Lang. Lang pushed out wide, and Tom Harvey a little bit too gentlemanly there. He could have cut across actually and claimed the line because there was space to do so, and as a result Jack Lang finally gains the position. Really
clean racing from the guys there, lots of respect, lots of kept it safe, which was nice to see. And but they can't forget that V8 there, who's getting ready to pounce on the way down to Eau Rouge. They're side by side again. You can't help but think Ferguson's going to drive by them both now, and they're going to do the whole thing again the next lap.
Yeah, although Andrew Ferguson won't be... Oh yes, isn't that? Oh my goodness, that was close. I'm not sure that Jack Lang saw Andrew Ferguson was there as they came down towards Eau Rouge, and Andrew Ferguson's just set a new world record for the highest ever recorded blood pressure. He continues in the race. He's got Tom Harvey behind him. We've also got Shaheen Nuri part of the scrap as well, and Jack Lang trying to break clear of it as he moves across the wet section of the circuit, all ready to cool the tyres down.
Yeah, Shaheen Nuri loving this because the cars in front are coming towards him, so it's bringing him into the race. Still though, looking at the leaders, Barker slightly slower by 7/10 than Burgess on that last lap, so it really is tight there, and with the SR8s extremely tight at the front as well, and Ryan Booth having some oversteer in the middle of Pouhon.
Yeah,
really a lot of oversteer.
Yeah, now this is John Harrison having a lot of understeer into Les Combes.
Yeah, that looked entertaining for John. So just make sure he didn't gain the advantage. It looks like he's waiting for Ryan to get back to him.
Yeah, I think both of them are just enjoying playing with the throttle, playing with the handling of the car as the track conditions change with each and every lap. We're at 1/3 race distance, and really it's still incredibly unpredictable as to how this race is going to unfold, because pit stops, possibly more than one, are going to come into the equation at some point. But delicacy of managing overheating wet tyres may also come into play, as will trying to get some slicks up to temperature on the down track.
Yeah, for sure. The back of Ryan's car looks very unstable at the moment, so I don't know if he's started with a very high starting pressure in that wet tyre, or... Oh, this looks like it's entertaining. These Shaheen Nuri, a bit of side-to-side with Harvey. Great move by Harvey, opportunistic, got squeezed out but cut straight back in, so, close, hard racing with those guys.
Also going very well is Jack Manchester, who's already fought his way up from the back of the grid and has joined in this scrap as well. So that is...
It looks like it might be Robinson in the car at the moment, but making great headway.
It is indeed James Robinson in the car at the moment. It's just our timing screen that suggests otherwise. So James Robinson, he was 30th odd on the grid, and he's now up into 8th position in pursuit of Shaheen Nuri as they come through Blanchimont towards the bus stop chicane. Robinson looks to the inside of Nuri. Shaheen sees him coming, Can't do anything to shut the door, just has to get into the corner as quickly as possible after Robinson slipped by.
Yeah, another good move there. He stopped it well on the second apex, gave himself a good exit so that Nuri couldn't have a nibble back into La Source. So yeah, good stuff there. Can't help but think that car's going to go forward more.
Just saw Tom Harvey ducking into the pits in the back of the picture as well. Not sure what has prompted that, but Harvey potentially going to be a little bit delayed. Maybe he's picked up a puncture somewhere running over some debris. That looks to be the case. It's the rear right corner.
Yeah, looks like there's a lot of attention there. This is that lead battle we were talking about. Burgess now only 1.3 between them, so Burgess has closed Barker down. So let's see how this develops now.
Well, Steve Burgess has been at the front of these Radical Challenge races for many seasons, and he's steadily been chipping away at Oliver Barker's advantage. Although last time round he was 9/10 quicker, and that's what has brought him onto terms with Barker.
Lots of confidence, these guys. You're running the exit curb already, and you can see noticeably no spray down here to pull on now. So my mind would say right now they'd be thinking about stopping late in the pit window, and the question is, do you put slicks on? But I can see there's a drying line here. 3 more laps, there is going to be a real drying line, I'm sure.
I think you're right. I think all of, certainly the Radical Challenge competitors who are single driver efforts, they will be thinking, let's pit in the last possible lap and really hope the trackers come to us. Whereas some of the 2 driver efforts might have their hands full a little bit. It's certainly going to make the pit lane very busy at the tail end of the pit window, and it also starts to come down to what the teams can do and how quickly they can change 4 tyres.
For sure, and noticeably Burgess now really in the fight with the fastest middle sector of anyone, SR8's included. So he can smell the lead. So come on, Steve, he's giving it everything.
Certainly is. Whether or not he can find a way past Oliver Barker, we will find out over the course of the next few moments or so. As they swing out of Blanchimont towards the bus stop chicane.
Barker in his mirrors there. You can see he's looking. He knows he's there. He's not going to be an easy man to pass, and we've seen him with a lot of speed already this weekend.
That was fairly easy though for Steve Burgess as Barker ran wide at the bus stop chicane. Now for Oliver Barker, the smart thing to do here might actually be to spend a couple of laps just following Steve Burgess, because Burgess has been that bit quicker. He can see where Burgess is pushing. He can start to match his pace to that of Steve Burgess. At the same time, Burgess, now he's got some clear track, will he be able to break Barker's will and resistance?
That's it. I mean, Steve will really want to put some space between them early on now and try and break away. He's got a nice little gap there, so he looks in a comfortable rhythm, in a good place. Barker won't want to stop.
The 2 SR8s flying in formation at the front of the field. Still Harrison from Booth, and interestingly Throw Rouge now it's pretty much completely dry line, as Ryan Booth thought there was half a gap to the inside of John Harrison. Harrison is certainly having his work cut out, as is Ryan Booth, just because these cars have got so much power at their disposal. They're having to be very mature with their right feet in terms of the way they're getting the power down, the way they're exploring where the grip is around the circuit.
That's it. With 440 horsepower and 700 kilos in weight, you really can't use too much throttle too early on. These cars can spin their wheels in 4th gear in these conditions. So no traction control, no ABS. These guys are literally putting everything they have into staying in control, and you can see the cars constantly on the move, trying to use every bit of grip they can find.
They'll certainly know they've had an afternoon of motorsport, won't they, by the time that they duck into the pits mid-race. Now they are both going to change drivers, so John Harrison's Colin Noble, Ryan Booth to Father Jim, and so that's the dynamic to watch for. It looks potentially quite good as a result for Harrison and Noble, except of course to say with Ryan Booth staying with John Harrison like this, all things being equal through the pit stop, then Jim Booth without success seconds might emerge with a reasonably handy advantage over Colin Noble, at least to defend for a few laps.
Yeah, we need Jim to have a good run in this next stint, because he will have Colin chasing him. Colin is an extremely fast guy, so but hopefully, Harrison off wide at Blanchimont there. So these guys really pushing everything they can for speed. So that will bring Booth straight back into the hunt. So you can see him straight back there. So see how this.
And the good thing there for John Harrison was at least the car didn't swing around and spin back into the retaining wall the other side. But
for sure, Booth with a great exit there. They're really thinking about how he got out of the bus stop. had a really nice cutback. If he has half, yeah, he's gone for it. He's gone for it.
Good move from Ryan Booth. He takes the lead, and now that he's got some clear air, can he break away from John Harrison? We have got the pit window open, exactly as you call it, Alex. Nobody is exactly rushing into the pit, so I think they've got to go past the pit lane open board first, so it won't be till the end of this lap, but they fly out of Radion, and Harrison is really committed through the quick corners, whereas Ryan Booth maybe just that little bit more confidence through some of the more technical sections of the circuit.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Harrison is really starting to get to grips with this new car now. Ryan's already raced it once out in Portimao earlier this year, so probably a little bit more familiar, although this is bizarrely the race he won out there is in the car that's chasing him down. But he seems to be going well. It really is just thinking about the lines. Oh, big wobble mid-corner there at Blanchimont. So well held, John, and let's see what he does.
And that's experience for you with John Harrison. He saw the moment, he just steered into it and was like, no drama, I'll just run wide. And
absolutely.
If he corrected at that moment, it could have been a lot more difficult for him.
Absolutely, but both these guys with the cars dancing round now, so really, really good scrap here. Let's just really looking after that rear tyre, really making sure that you don't hurt it too much, but equally you've got to race the other guy. He doesn't want him to get away. So again, you see that dry line coming. A couple more laps, we're going to be on slick tyres.
Yeah, for Ryan Booth then coming through Pau, so many little micro corrections of the car as he was coming out of the corner, and then into Fagnes where it remains really slippery, and it's far from a done deal that you'd necessarily want to go with slicks at this point. You'd have to be, I think, really confident in getting the heat into them before you got to this sort of backstretch of the track.
Yeah, the slick won't warm up that fast if you were on it now. You just need a few more minutes, get that line as dry as it can be before you end up on it. Might want to start the pressures a little bit higher, but you can see even there in the early part of Blanchimont, the car's starting to move around. It's going to be a real handful.
David Franklin about to be besieged by the race leaders as Ryan Booth powers past him. John Harrison does much the same. So this is the first lap available to them that they could pit in if they wanted to. And Ryan Booth continues now. Into the pits comes John Harrison. Now this is interesting for handing over to Colin Noble Jr. David Franklin is also in. So we'll hopefully see from the pit shot what decision they made, but that feels a couple of laps too premature.
Yeah, for me, I think that's could be a difficult one for Colin now. He's going to have to go out. They're going to have to put him on the slick tyre, I think. The wet tyres won't last another 31 minutes. It's going to be quite a difficult one to get temperature in them. It's still not as dry as it's going to be at the end of the pit window. So, interesting decision there, but it's going to be a race of the pit crews, and let's see how they all get on.
Well, Ryan Booth thoroughly enjoying himself. Now here is the pit stop. You can see some scrubbed slicks being made available. John Harrison has overshot it, considerably overshot it.
It looks like they're going a long way back, so let's hope they don't lose too much time here. It's going to play into the hands of the Booths here, but Ryan now with his toe really down, just setting the fastest first sector of everyone. So he knows these are important laps. He's got to make it count if he wants to give his dad a good gap to Noble. This
is going to be really good fun, I think, in the latter stages, because Colin Noble's going to have quite a hare to chase, isn't he?
I think Booth really driving this car well. You can see the car constantly on the move. He's just blending the throttle in and out. You know, the rear tyre spinning up. He won't want to overheat them too much, but you can just see it drifting. He's absolutely on the edge of adhesion.
I think he's having an awful lot of fun. We've had other cars into the pits as well. Andrew Ferguson to pass over to Jeremy Ferguson. Dominic Jackson and Shaheen Nouri have come in, as have Christian Jeffrey. Ivan Lukasevich taking over from Konstantin Gurkayev. And
interestingly, the Robinson car now into third place in the class, so he is charging.
Just, yeah, some interesting strategies at play, one would suggest. So Gurkayev not quite as quick as Lukasevich, but again, it's a big gamble to put Ivan Lukasevich onto slicks at this moment. And that's what they're doing, as you can see.
Yeah, the guys are going for it. The slick tyre is definitely the right call, but as I say, I think if I was in it personally, I would be wanting to wait right to the end of the window. So I'm going out to the driest track I can. You can see there is still some damp patches there, but there is a dry line as well. So this is going to be a test of the drivers. certainly don't want to be losing out and having a spin at this point. So let's hope they go okay.
Yeah, really hope that is the case. As Booth into the bus stop chicane.
Going one more.
Yeah, he's just looking for where the grip is, isn't he? I think he's going to have time. He might squeak 2 more laps out of this stint.
Yeah, kid just puts in his best lap of the race.
No, I think he's in this time. You saw him going past the pit board and acknowledging more work underway. That's Philippe Payot taking over from Jacques Viard. And again, slick tyres going on.
So the other interesting thing for these guys now, a lot of them will be going on brand new slicks. You have 2 qualifying sessions, but 3 races. And for the V8s, they're allowed 3 sets of tyres. So it means a lot of them will be on stickered tyres. So that will add another factor, another complexity for them, just trying to get that sheen off the tyre as they leave the pit lane.
So Steve Burgess, Oliver Barker, both in, as is Jack Lang. So clearly there's a feeling that actually the track is dry enough, and maybe the TV pictures are making it look a little bit more challenging than it actually is. Yeah,
let's see. So we've got a race of the teams now. I'm guessing this car doesn't have air jacks, so the guys having to lift it manually with a jack at the rear. That makes it a lot more difficult for them. But there's Lang.
Lang to a halt. Air jack goes on. Up pops Jack Lang, and the team get to work. So this is potentially not something that some of the teams were particularly drilled for. Now here out on track is Colin Noble. So Noble on slicks, and let's see what sort of sector and lap times he starts to do. He's just done the fastest speed of anybody in the race so far, 248 kph through the speed trap, and already a car's width worth of dry line at Pouhon. So it changes almost each and every time we see the camera shot. I'm just waiting for Noble to complete the sector, but then he gets caught out a little bit at Fagnes, where it's still very slippery, before he suddenly comes into the sunlight on a dry track towards Stavelot. Now for Ryan Booth, he hasn't got his latest sector 2 available to him, but Colin Noble, a 76.4 versus a 77.9 for Ryan Booth.
Yeah, so the crossover point is here. They need to get Ryan in now. So there's faster sectors on slicks. Needs to make the change now.
So Ryan coming to see Jim Booth. It wasn't the quickest of pit stops for John Harrison and Colin Noble. So we'll see what sort of advantage Jim emerges from the pits with. Oh, Steve Burgess just understeers a little bit through Les Combes. You've got this very narrow ribbon of track. I guess the other element of it, Alex, of course, is that catching the cars is going to be one thing. Actually finding a way through when it's going to be so slippery offline will be something of a challenge.
Absolutely, and this warm-up phase now is something you would never practice for. You would never send a driver out on a damp track with brand new slicks and say go for that. This is unusual. So so a lot of the guys will be out of their comfort zones doing this, but there is good time to be made up. If you can bring these tyres in quickly and effectively, you're gonna make time back to the rivals.
Ryan Booth has come in to hand over to Jim Booth. So the race leader is in, and
Burgess actively weaving in the straights, just trying to get any temperature he can into these tyres. Still with quite a late turn in there, you know, he's still slightly compromised on line to where he wants to be, but every corner those tyres are going to start to feel better and better.
Yeah, they really will. Just already through Fagnes in the space of 2 minutes, just a bit more of a dry line emerging, and so they've kind of picked it just about spot on with the crossover point. As here is the Booth pit stop. Jim Booth slots in. It's like the tyres have been changed, the air jacks go down. Jim Booth will gets strapped into the car and then be on his way.
Yeah, it's going to be a tricky one for Jim. This is not going to be like it is out in the US, so tricky track to go to, wet, dry, slick, new slicks, big horsepower. There's a lot of challenges he's going to face, but he drives well. He's good in the V8, so let's hope he has a good stint. Let's see where he ends up relative to Noble.
Still Steve Burgess warming up the tyres, and Steve, I think we make it, is going to be leading the Supersport class reasonably comfortably actually by the time that all these pit stops have shaken through. As he plunges downhill, he has got Barry Liversidge just ahead of him.
And that really highlights the difference between a car on cold slicks and warmer slicks. You see how he can drive around the outside of Barry, and Barry's going to be experiencing something that a lot of the guys are right now, which is cold slicks, damp track, and that's quite intimidating. So so want to take a few corners to come up to speed.
Yeah, you'll be experiencing that it's going to be just a little bit tricky, but again, this is the experience thing. Steve Burgess lap ago was weaving as much as he could. Now, who's that going offline to cool the tyres down? Surely it's not Jim, it is Jim Booth. So I just wonder if Jim has stayed on wets, which...
Let's see, I mean, he's run on there. To me, I think he might have stayed on wet tyres.
Slightly esoteric choice of strategy.
Yeah, he is actively seeking out damp. So so Jim is on the wets. That really is going to be quite difficult as the stint goes on.
But again, this just could be a call from Jim and Ryan. They don't want to damage the car. Let's just bring it home safely. And the Jim feels more comfortable going out on wet tyres and then having another pit stop. So be it. Yeah,
it's about having fun for him. Jim isn't here trying to make a career in racing, so he may well have gone for the sensible option, which is to stay safe on wets. But the car either way will get quite hard to drive, because those wets aren't designed to drive on a dry circuit. So so let's hope he gets on okay.
Yeah, as he's got Oliver Barker bobbing and weaving behind him, and Barker slides to the inside into Fania as Jim's seen him. Barker forced off line where there's not a whole heap of grip, but he's able to eventually slip his way past and then accelerates on towards Stavolo.
Noble now with the fastest first sector of anyone, so so he's obviously got a lot of confidence. His tyres are coming underneath him, and he's ready to go.
The order's still a little bit jumbled because Paul Allen and John Caldwell yet to make their pit stops, but I don't think it is Steve Burgess, who is effectively our race leader, who's 20 seconds up the road ahead of Oliver Barker. Jim Booth in third. Here is Steve Burgess. And so, yeah, Steve really having a fantastic afternoon of it. And it's just been interesting to see the way that Steve's approached this weekend. He didn't lose his head when he got swamped on the first lap of yesterday's race, and he's just brought it home with a good result each time out.
Yeah, he's an experienced radical campaigner, so he knows how to get these races won. He won the championship last year, so it's gone well in this race, especially. Really good speed relative to Barker, who's been super fast all weekend, so he'll be happy with that.
Well, here is Paul Allen, who is currently showing us being the leader of the race, but hasn't had his pit stop, and
a little bit of oversteer there on turn into Lacombe, so those wet tyres really will be giving out now.
Ivan Lukasevich has just set the fastest lap of the race.
That's pretty impressive in an SR3, so we know Ivan's going to be fast, so so he'll have his head down. He's got some work to do to come back up the order, and I'm just trying to see now where the Manchester car is, how that's done in the driver change.
Just wonder for Paul Allen, he is so focused on the job he's doing, whether he's just missed the pit boards altogether, because sometimes when you're that maxed out in concentration, those things can pass you by.
For sure, and ultimately not all of these guys have radios, so so not all will be in contact with the pits and know what's happening. So so he may have missed the boards, missed the pit boards he's been given, and let's hope not. Let's hope it's strategy.
Interesting one, but he's going to be passed nonetheless fairly shortly by Steve Burgess. Burgess 20 seconds clear of Oliver Barker. Jim Booth effectively in third from Jack Lang and Dominic Jackson. Then it's Colin Noble. Now Noble is 60 seconds adrift of Steve Burgess. I don't think he's going to be winning the race outright altogether unless he has the most phenomenal 20 minutes.
It's a long way to come back from. He's going to, I mean, he obviously lost a bit of time in that pit stop with the with not being parked in the right place when John parked. But Noble will be chasing hard. He's going to have nice fresh tyres. So let's see what he can do.
Meanwhile, Paul Allen, I'm not sure he's completely seen Steve Burgess.
No, I don't think so. And also the pit window is now closed. If it wasn't closed before Allen went past it last time, he can still go in. There we are. He's maybe just exploiting to the very end of the window, doing what we were talking about, and now his teammate will get to go out on the absolute driest the circuit could be. So again, could be an inspired choice.
But it does promote Steve Burgess to the overall lead of the race, as Steve heads through La Source. That last lap from Burgess, 2 minutes 32.9, which compares very favourably to the last one from Oliver Barker, which was a 2 minute 36.0. But Barker comes through the 2 minutes 33.7, so gives away a further 8/10 to Steve Burgess.
Yeah, definitely looks like Steve's got the upper hand in this one, so a bit more confidence. Certainly, I mean, you can't take away from Barker his second year of racing. It really is incredible. He's got this speed to start with, but I think the experience Burgess has across the years really prevailing now. Starting to get a move on and extend his gap.
So Barker second, Jack Lang is third, Jim Booth in fourth, Dominic Jackson fifth, John Harrison, or rather Colin Noble, in sixth. And Noble, his last lap was a 2 minutes 33.1, so actually a little bit slower than that of Steve Burgess, which shows Burgess's confidence through the corners relative to that Colin Noble can exploit in the SR8.
Yeah, Burgess being quite sensible there on track limits, which is good. I know he got a penalty in the earlier race, so good to see he's respecting that. He'll just want to do everything he can now to close out this next 18 minutes, get to the end and bag the points for his championship campaign.
And yeah, a drive-through penalty for Jason Redding for pitting after the pit has closed.
That's unfortunate.
So where's the next stop for the Radical Challenge from here? Certainly the Radical European Masters. We will see them in action at the Hungaroring on the first weekend of July, which we will very much look forward to. Less chance of a heavy shower at the Hungaroring in the first week of July.
Yeah, let's hope so. I mean, certainly traditionally a hot weekend, so I don't think anyone would have banked on coming to Spa and having 30-degree temperatures, so at least we'll be ready for it when we get to Hungary.
Certainly will be, as we watch the progress of Philip Hayo, who's down in 18th place.
Unfortunately, those guys really did look like they lost a lot of time in the pit stop. Not having the right jacking equipment made it quite hard to get the tyres on. But he's obviously on a charge now and making progress through.
And trying to come back at Oliver Barker. Now, this is going to be the sort of thing that Barker just really doesn't want, which is an SR8 in the hands of Pye, which is actually a very competitive car, as Jim Booth has got Mark Crader, Christian Jeffrey, and plenty of others all swarming around him. I think, who's that? Dominic Jackson trying to fight his way through it. And it's Jackson who goes around the outside of all of them.
Yeah, this is going to get quite entertaining for them all now. So we got the raw car there of Dominic Jackson and the two works cars of Crader and Jeffrey, both teammates. So they're going to want to keep it clean between each other. No antics. So let's see if they can get past Booth. Again, he's going to stretch his legs down the straights, but they're going to see the SR3s descend on him as they go through the bus stop. They've
also got Joe Watt with them, and so this is a battle for position between Mark Crader and Christian Jeffrey for 21st place, and it's Jeffrey who gets next to run at the bus stop chicane. And here is Spencer Bourne. Oh, that's so unlucky. Oh, that's Lukasevich who gets clattered into the tyre wall at the point at which he was the quickest driver in the race.
What a shame. Really nothing he could have done there. Absolutely nothing. And John McLeod, the same thing, just that line that when the guys were on wet tyres felt so good, on slick tyres you just can't go out there. So unfortunate for John, and really unfortunate for Ivan as well, because there was nowhere he could have gone.
Just hope that we can get Ivan up and running again. Jim Booth has also got a stop and go penalty for refuelling infringement. Just looking, if Ivan hasn't been able to get running, we could see a safety car, because his car in a pretty awkward position on the exit of Les Combes.
And looking at this, we've got Crader going down the outside of Jeffrey. He's on the dry line. It's going to be difficult for Jeffrey to stop.
Colin Noble trying to pick his way through all of it. We've got double waved yellow flags at Les Combes, and the reason being that we've got Lukasevich's car just on the exit of the corner. And so Colin Noble, who's trying to side his way through all this, he's got cars on wet tyres on the dry line as he's on slick tyres on the wet line trying to get past them.
Yeah, you've definitely got some differing agendas here about where the guys want to be on the circuit. Jeffrey looking for anywhere he can just to squeeze past the McDonald's sponsored car. So it's, again, coming onto a straight, it's going to be very difficult for him. You see Booth moving offline. He's not defending. He's just trying to cool his tyres. But again, it makes Jeffrey have to think about attacking Booth but defending to Crader, and then Noble there just trying to get through the pack and make the progress he can to the leaders.
I think for Colin Noble, this is a case of discretion very much being the better part of valour, as he somehow finds some space to the inside of Mark Crader, so that's 1 place gained. As Jeffrey to the outside of Jim Booth, so it means that Colin Noble comes out of Fania, sees the road full in front of him. He kicks sideways, because of course he's on slick tyres, and so off the racing line there's no grip, and he's necessarily having to go off it as Jim Booth runs wide through Stavelot. Booth will then pick up the pace and potentially repass Crader, and there's still a quarter of the race to run here. And just wonder whether or not Jim Booth and some of these other cars, I think they're all on wets, might actually duck in for a second pit stop, because there is a risk of a puncture after a while.
For sure. Oh, it looks like Brian Corbell here just getting wide. I mean, it's the same spin as we saw with McLeod. So easily done. Just all you need to do, a couple of metres too late, slick tyre onto a damp surface, and you just can't stay on.
Yeah, all very difficult up at Lake Om at the moment. Colin Noble has fought his way through this gaggle of cars, which continues to battle. So the race order is Steve Burgess leads the way. Second place is Oliver Barker. Third is Jack Lang. Fourth is Dominic Jackson. Fifth is Colin Noble. Sixth is Jim Booth. Seventh, Sean Byrne. Eighth, Shaheen Nouri. Ninth, James Robinson. And it's Spencer Bourne, who currently completes the top 10. 13 and a quarter minutes to run. As Christian Jeffrey navigates Eau Rouge. Here's our race leader, Steve Burgess. Just looking at the sky, it's not as bright as it was a few minutes ago.
It's not. I don't know if we're going to get another deluge here, which will really spice the last few minutes up. It's a big slide from Burgess there. The car really starts to move around underneath him, but we know from earlier he's very comfortable with that. It's obviously how he sets the car up.
Delegation from the Burgess family and pit crew, I think, about to make their way to the commentary booth for the suggestion that rain might spice things up. It's Steve Burgess will be quite happy that it stays dry and that nothing happens, as far as he's concerned, for the next 12 and a half minutes.
That's it. He'll be hearing every noise the car's making. He'll be thinking every curb he crosses, was something different there. He'll just want this 12 minutes over now, but he's driven a really solid race and just looking to close it out.
Oh, but he makes a slight mistake into the bus stop chicane, and this is, I think what we're starting to see is that the track is really drying out. The driver's just braking later and later and later, closer to their dry weather braking point, and it is catching them out on 1 or 2 occasions.
Absolutely. I mean, he's pushing. He knows the best form of defence is attack, and just trying to grow that gap to Barker. I mean, he's got 18 seconds, so he can be more conservative now, but he's obviously decided no, he's going to crack on, which is a good plan.
The driver to watch the progress of, I think, is Jack Lang in third, because Lang is currently lapping 5 seconds a lap quicker than Steve Burgess. He's 21 seconds back, so he needs 4 laps at that rate of capture to get onto terms with Burgess, as more battling further down through the field. That's John McLeod.
And I think Lang also has got 4 seconds to Barker in front, and that will be his carrot. He'll want he'll want to have that second place on the podium.
Philippe Payot darts between the middle of John McLeod and Brian Harvey, and Payot currently in 15th position, as Burgess just sees Aaron Bailey, I think Lee Bailey just slipping sideways a little bit, and so gains the place, continues down towards Poole, where it's now a completely dry line into the left-hander. And it's amazing to think when this race started there was so much spray being kicked up through Poole, but it's all drained away. So Burgess is lead 16.4 seconds over Oliver Barker. So Barker is catching Burgess, Lang is catching Barker. This is not done and dusted just yet. No,
there's some more racing to happen here. See if we see an orange car pop up. There he is. You can see Lang really wanting to get on terms with Barker. Barker extremely fast through that speed trap, though. He's carrying 5 kilometres more than most cars, and so he's either got his wing trimmed out or a very good engine in there. So he'll be hoping that Lang can't catch him. Lang hoping the opposite.
So Barker 6/10 quicker than Steve Burgess through the middle sector alone to build on the 6/10 that he gained on Burgess through sector 1. And so this could get interesting. 15.8 seconds, the gap between Burgess and Barker through the middle sector on the lap. We'll see if it comes down further still by the time they get to the end of this 17th lap of the race. Burgess has just done his personal best, a 2 minutes 30.2. Oliver Barker has got a little bit of traffic to contend with. Jason Redding, the first of it. And Barker does a 2 minutes 28.2, so he takes exactly 2 seconds out of Burgess. Jack Lang, a 2 minutes 28.5, so about 1.8 seconds out of Burgess. So they all start to converge on each other. We have got a drive-through penalty for Shaheen Nouri for gaining advantage on a track limits infringement. Now the question is whether or not Burgess has just eased things off a little bit too much and he can respond to it, or whether or not Barker and Lang have actually got a realistic chance of reeling him in.
I think he's probably just knows he's got a good gap. No need to really stress himself. Just if he can reel off 2 minute 30s, they won't catch him in time. So I think he's probably under control, but needs to make sure that pace doesn't drop any more than that. So if he starts throwing any 33s, 34s, they will have a sniff at this.
Certainly through the first sector, Barker is the man to beat. 43.2, 226 clicks in the speed trap.
Every lap consistently very fast down those straights, and it's an advantage you can carry all the way from La Source, all the way through Eau Rouge, all the way down the Kemmel. So yeah, it's something he is doing well, whether it's set up, whether it's an aero setting,
or he just bolted in the Formula 1 engine. We won't find out until after the race.
We'll let the scrutineers decide that one.
We are, of course, joking. The Radical Challenge very evenly matched with these cars. It comes down to setup really, as the difference between the pair of between the field, as Jim Booth still persevering in fifth. Now, Colin Noble has had a terrible lap last round, a 2 minutes 47.2. I wonder if Noble had a spin-off camera somewhere that we missed.
Yeah, that would be interesting to see. Not sure what's happened there. So his progress obviously stopped, but you can see Jim seeking out that damp circuit again. So this car must feel awful, to be honest, at the moment. So nothing worse for a driver than driving on a wet tyre on a dry track. It's just not fun.
So watching for Steve Burgess to come past us, which he's due to do any moment, and with 7.25 minutes left in the race, lapping another 2 minutes 30. So that suggests we're only going to have 3 laps to run, including the one that he's just started. So it's 2 minutes 30.4 for Steve Burgess, which we've got another car in trouble up at La Source. A 2 minutes 29.6 for Barker. He was in traffic. And a 2 minutes 29.2 for Lang. So the gap between Burgess and Barker only 14.3 seconds. And the other thing Jim Booth needs to do is come in for that stop and go penalty. He's not done it yet, and that's the point at which the race direction starts to get a little bit irritated.
Yeah, definitely wants to take that. It's better to do that. We don't want to see a black flag for him, because it has been a solid race still. He's still going to be finishing up there, so just needs to come in and take that.
Now here is a replay of Steve Burgess under threat from Philippe Payot, and Payot launching to the inside of him. Burgess gesticulates as Payot then runs wide. You're number one, Philippe, or
yeah,
words to that effect.
A little bit of frustration there. I think he'll feel, Payot couldn't stop the car. Payot did run wide on the way out, so probably wasn't a great move from Payot there. But and Burgess obviously trying to close a race out. It's the worst thing you want, is to have other people interfering with it.
Jim Booth, leader of the Masters class. Now, is he going to go in for a stop and go penalty this time around? Yes, he is. He's going to be a good boy. And he was only 4 seconds up on Colin Noble. More of a sort out, still involving Philippe Payot and Steve Burgess, who's been repassed by Payot. And
so it looks like, I think that was Spencer Bourne off the circuit there at Pouhon. Burgess just managing to dive up the inside. There's Payot just in front of Burgess.
And Gary Patterson as well, yeah.
There we go, stop and go complete, and Jim's back into the race.
As Jim rejoins, he will have dropped now behind Colin Noble. Race leader Steve Burgess, he is about to start the penultimate lap of proceedings, and he will be quite happy to see the checkered flag coming out, particularly as he is potentially going to be chasing Philippe Payot down through the slower sections of the circuit. But Payot, now the track has dried out, able to stretch his legs at the wheel of the SR8. Payot exits the bus stop chicane, and he's got himself back onto the lead lap here, Philippe Payot, as Burgess goes into the penultimate lap of the race. and his lap time was a 2 minutes 32.8, mainly because I think the fact that he came across cars in all angles and positions coming through pool, I had to ease out of it. But it does mean that Barker is now within 10 seconds of Burgess, but over 2 laps that feels far from realistic.
Yeah, I think that's comfortable. You know, he can afford to move down to a 2:37. We know he had a little bit of excitement on that lap with Pio, so I think he's still comfortable in here. He's just stroking it all the way to the end. Doesn't need to take any chances. As long as he crosses the line first, he's good. But it won't stop Barker chasing. Clearly, Barker's still throwing in really fast laps every lap, wanting to get on terms with him.
Into Les Combes for the penultimate time, and Steve Burgess just driving well. I was going to say well within himself. He's not pushing the car any harder than he needs to, and he's just not taking the risks of using any curbs that he's not completely confident are going to cause him any disturbance.
Very deep in there, very deep in. So that could have been what we've spoken about previously, where little lapse in concentration, went in a little bit deep while he's not trying to push really hard for a lap time. So yep, stayed on. So all still good.
And it's a slightly strange circuit, Spa, because you do at some points have actually quite long intervals before corners where you can risk getting out of your rhythm and then have to jolt yourself back in.
You know, the guys know exactly where their braking point is when they're trying flat out. You try judging that, you know, and taking 2% off. It's not the easiest thing to do, so it's quite easy to try and brake early, but then not use the right brake pressure and actually arrive at the corner faster than you anticipate. So you know, ultimately, just trying to keep his head down, trying to bang in consistent laps, every lap, consistent sectors. You know, you can see the car still moving around there. He is trying. So 2 minutes 40 to go. He'll be relieved to know this is the last lap he's about to start. So yeah, good stuff.
And Oliver Barker has also had some adventures along the way through the middle sector, a little bit slower than Steve Burgess even. So the gap from Burgess to Barker hasn't moved at all over the course of this lap. As Burgess heads through the bus stop chicane, he will, I'm sure, be made aware via a pit board or two that he's into the last lap of the race, and therefore he just needs to negotiate the next 7 kilometres without any undue drama. Lap of 2 minutes 31.5, and he has, well, there's Jack Lang, and what we've not really kept track of is that Lang has really struggled to get within or any deeper than 4 seconds into Barker's advantage, and it's gone back out again.
Yeah, it's been quite stale in there for these two guys. They're just been sat at that gap for a little while. I think ultimately both fast guys, both on the pace, exploiting what they can from the car, and it just underlines how you can't afford to give any time away. And you know, the impressive part of this race for Burgess was the outlap on slicks. You know, really did seem to build quite a comfortable gap during that period. So he'll be relieved for that. There you can see Barker though in the shot. So ultimately it's too far to find in one lap, but another really solid drive from all of these 3 guys. You know, an hour of racing, and to see them all that close together is pretty impressive.
The place that's likely to change is for 3rd place in the Masters class, because Philippe Pio is currently 25 seconds lap quicker than Jim Booth, and is 11 seconds adrift of Jim going into this last lap of the race. So the tactical gamble for the Booths hasn't quite paid off, and it looks like they are going to get shuffled off the podium with just a few metres to run in the race.
Yeah, I think Jim will be delighted to see that checker flag. He'll want to shake that the checker flag man's hand when he comes past, just to be glad this one's over.
Yeah, probably just to confirm that the race has finished, as through Fania goes Steve Burgess, and Burgess, this has been the sort of the weekend that you can see how he became a champion, taking the points when he needed to, taking the victory when the opportunity presented itself.
That's it. You know, it's all controlled risk. Just keep putting those solid results in. If you can win, that's fantastic. But a 4th place is much better than a DNF. So you know, just really solid stuff. He's had speed when he needed to. Barker has been incredibly fast as well. So these guys really are shaping up, along with the other guys, Lang, for a pretty fierce head-to-head.
Steve Burgess heads into the bus stop chicane for the final time as he navigates the last left-hander. He can see the checker flag And Steve Burgess comes through to claim victory in the third and final Radical Challenge race of the weekend in Spa. Second place goes the way of Oliver Barker, and it will be Jack Lang who completes the podium. They're also the top 3 finishers in the Supersport class, with Colin Noble, our outright race winner from earlier on, set in due course to come through and claim Masters class victory. And well, despite the very difficult conditions, Alex, they've by and large all stayed out of trouble.
Yeah, I think that was a really good show from the guys. That was a really easy race to make a mistake, drop a wheel off and off the dry line, and have a spin in the second half, especially when they went to slick tyres. So the guys were really restrained there. Some good driving, and live to fight another day.
Certainly the case. So a very enjoyable weekend of racing from the Radical Challenge here at Spa-Francorchamps, and it is Steve Burgess who has claimed victory in the concluding race as he comes to a halt already in Parc Fermé. The last smattering of cars are due to come across the line, with Barker and Lang already parking up in Parc Fermé as well. So Steve Burgess out of the car almost before Jack Lang has come to a halt. And let's take a look back then at the very best of the race. And after a deluge, just as the cars came to the grid, we had 2 laps behind the safety car. When we did get going, it was Ryan Booth who shot into the early advantage ahead of John Harrison, as Konstantin Gukayev was somewhat bullied by those behind. As you can see, it was very treacherous away from the start and finish area, and the early laps were something of a voyage of discovery until the dry line started to emerge. And when it did, the SR8 started to come to the fore, and we saw most of the field switching to slicks through the mid-race pit stops. Before then, though, Andrew Ferguson was in the thick amidst of traffic. Mark Crader and Spencer Bourne were coming together around about mid-race, actually with no harm done. Shaheen Nuri also getting a little bit too close for comfort with Tom Harvey. A pair of them enjoying a good scrap. Steve Burgess and Oliver Barker were fighting for the win, and Burgess was able to slip past Barker and thereafter was unheaded as Ryan Booth and John Harrison continued their SR8 tussle. Eventually it was advantage Booth, but then as Jim Booth took over, the team made the wrong call with tyres. Ivan Lukasevich very unlucky to be skittled out of the race, the innocent victim of a small mistake from Spencer Bourne. John McLeod, also another driver, getting caught out on slick tyres at Les Combes later on in proceedings. But for Steve Burgess, it was a fairly comfortable and dominant performance. So Steve Burgess coming through, he took the victory from Oliver Barker and Jack Lang. John Harrison and Colin Noble winning the Masters class from Jeremy and Andrew Ferguson. So look then at the final classification. Burgess wins it from Barker and Lang. Dominic Jackson in 4th, then Noble and Harrison in 5th, from the Ferguson 6th, Sean Burns 7th, Jack Manchester and James Robinson 8th from the back of the grid, ahead of Philippe Payot and Jacques Viard. The Booths eventually finishing in 10th, ahead of Shaheen Nuri, John McLeod, Brian Caldwell, and then Dumitrescu and Dierk. So that is just about it from our coverage this weekend of the Radical Challenge here in Spa-Francorchamps. So from Alex Mortimer and myself, Ben Evans, thank you very much for joining us, and we will see you again soon as the Radical Racing season continues.